Giannis is kind of included in this, along with some other top players in the league. But you kind of mentioned it before as well, Devontae. But we talk about this MVP conversation, and in this particular season, I don't think the 65 game rule has had, more impact than it does, this year. Jokic is 4 or 5 games from being
No, he's 2 games away.
2 games
He
away.
he can, he can miss one more. He missed two. He out.
So he 2 games away from being ineligible. Giannis is ineligible. I think Steph is already ineligible potentially or very close to it. Bron is ineligible. Luka is close. Shea is
About 10, 11 games away. Yeah.
and as long as he returns soon, he should be in the clear. But
Oh yeah, he's cleared to play now.
all your perennial contenders for the last 3, 4, 5 years, damn near, or damn near out the running. And so it brings up the conversation now when you're talking about your Cades, when you're talking about your Jaylen Browns. Now people are kind of speaking about it as if it's only a thing or they'll walk into this award because of the rule. And I feel like it's a both and situation. Like obviously the rule is impacting, which players are eligible and how you're looking at them. But at the
Right.
same time, Jaylen Brown and Cade Cunningham are both having MVP caliber seasons. Like I think the argument should be that even if those other players were healthy, from a numbers perspective, I don't think the list should look any different necessarily because the numbers are there. So, just kind of thoughts on who y'all think is in the MVP conversation in general, but also just how the 65 game rule, which is a stupid rule, I feel like everybody can agree on that, but how that is just impacting more so kind of like the media narrative around the conversation.
Go ahead.
I feel like you've been giving me the reins. I got
Okay. So my first issue with the award is who knows the criteria,
Every year,
right?
talk about this.
So and all I can do when I give my opinion, all I can do is list my criteria before I give my selection, at least in present day. So my criteria, and again, another video I'd put on my account. My criteria is what was your expectation? What was your team's expectation entering the season? How valuable are you to your team? And do your performances translate to wins? Right. And all of these are within your team. Some people look at MVP as best player in the league award. That's not what it is. It's most valuable player, and it's most valuable then defined by your production, or is most valuable defined by your value to your franchise. Right. So my criteria for MVP is centered on the team. How valuable are you to your team and your team's success? If you fall short in performance, does your team also fall short and more than likely lead to losses, right? So when I encompass all of those things, my selection as it stands is Cade Cunningham at this point in the season on February 27th, right? And Jaylen Brown is a very close second. The reason he's second is because they're both in the same conference, playing the same amount of teams, the same amount of times, and one guy's team is ahead of the other. And I'm kind of in the air about this, but I do believe that the Celtics supporting cast. Never mind, I'll leave that alone.
They'd
I'm gonna
be
leave
able
that
to
alone.
Better?
survive.
Is their cast better?
Without Jalen, then the Pistons would survive without Cade.
For sure.
I agree. Yes, and that's where I was coming from with it as well. So for those reasons, I have Cade at this very moment. But a thing I can say that I've been saying for a minute now, the NBA gives MVPs in retrospect, in my opinion. Last season, I know Shea got a whole lot of credit for what he did, and I know Yoke was as amazing as he was, but the Detroit Pistons had no expectation for anything and became relevant with that guy as the head of their snake. I think he provided the most value to his team the entire season of 25 or 24, 25. The year before, the Thunder were the same way. I think Shea should have won MVP that season. And they ran it back the next year
Yeah.
Just off the strength of him not winning the year before.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Same with Nikola Jokic during him and Joel Embiid. Nikola Jokic should have won that, in my opinion. The year before, I think Joel Embiid should have got it. It seems in recent time, the MVP award has been given in retrospect. And that's why I have issue with certain narratives forming about things. Even we see in the NFL, it's like Josh Allen got MVP off the narrative forming, right? And in reality, I think it might have should have been Lamar when it happened. Like, it's just people are giving leagues are giving MVPs in retrospect, man, especially the NBA. And that is one of my biggest gripes, along with the fact that criteria is not established.
And it's not clear. It's never clear. And you got the media gets these votes. And again, like you said, between the media getting the votes, and that is a whole thing in and of itself. The retrospective aspect of how we're viewing the players and their production. And again, like this criteria, like you said, like they're because the same could go for most improved, right? Like for a lot of the awards, really, if you think about it, but like there is no criteria as to what does a player need to do or what are you looking for within a player's game or the game in general that makes them eligible or makes them fit the criteria for an award. And if these awards are going to mean as much to the narrative and to the legacy of these players and even the game, this criteria has to be clear because the way we're starting to see parity now from a team standpoint with championships, I think that parity should also exist within awards. That's not to take away from, Jokic winning back to back, or that's not to take away from people being perennial contenders. But just because you have the best 5 players in the world, come to your point, that doesn't mean just because they're the best 5 players in the world and they have these numbers that they should be the MVP because the value to their team may look different based on team construction. Like, yes, Jokic has a Murray, but that doesn't mean the value to the team looks looks different because Murray leading that team looks very different than Jokic leading that team. Like when LeBron was in Miami with Wade, like, yeah, LeBron was still clearly the top dog, but I think to undermine the value that a Wade or even a Bosh for that matter had on the team, like when you talk about value, like I think a Wade and Bosh team without Bron, obviously they aren't as good. They probably don't make the 4-year run they make, but they probably still competitive in the East, arguably.
Yeah, of course.
So it's that idea of like take that value into consideration. Gail, I think we talked about this in the previous episode, but if you want to focus on production, we can have offensive player of the year. Like we got a DPOY. We can have an offensive player of the year if you just want to solely talk about like statistics and production.
Exactly.
But if you're going to talk about value, then we shouldn't be talking about number. It should be team record. It should be what does the team look like with this player versus not with this player? Does the team go by this player, or does this just happen to be the best player or most skilled player on this team? So that's
does this player hold value on both sides of the ball as well?
that too.
That matters too. Go ahead.
That too. But yeah, so I really do like and agree with your criteria though, because I feel like when you focus on the value of it, we're having a very different conversation about the people who should be in the running for it versus just running off the names of the people who have the craziest stats and are the biggest names on the most, known teams, or just the players that the media is talking about the most because the way they just cycle their news is so repetitive and narrative based that like they're also missing a lot of key components as well. But yeah, it becomes more of a tired conversation than it should because it should be us debating value of a player to their team and getting into like the trenches of like what it really takes to like build a roster or build around a certain player versus the media narratives of this player and what it means to have his second or his third MVP and or this player and how many points they're averaging. And it gets more tired than it should. It should be more of a enjoyable debate because we should be debating more of the intangibles that make the game aspect of it like actually fun. So yeah, hopefully we move toward that, more than what we've been experiencing the last few years, because it's been a tiring conversation probably since Giannis's last one. I'll probably say after his back-to-back, when Jokic and Embiid started, they kind of back and forth. Ever since then, and that's probably when the media narrative around it really got bad as well. But like ever since then, it's been a terrible talking point. Honestly, it's just been more tiring than necessary.
So with the to get back to your most improved thing as well, that also became an award of this pool of players who is the best, but
Right.
not who improved the most. You know what I mean? Like I think Kobe White, like last season or year before, got snubbed for it, right? Man, it's been times, man. It's been times in recent years where there are guys that have been selected as most improved, and at least in my own opinion, were not the most improved. They were the best, and in a lot of
The year
cases,
Ja won it. The year Ja won it.
exactly. And I think that was, what is that? Was Luca the one that was like, no, give it to Ja? Like some happened. Luca was in a running for one of them years at some point, I think, or maybe no, maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it might have been somebody else. I might be tripping. But what I do know is the gap of growth is what should determine that award,
Exactly.
not who was the best with their growth. Right. I think a lot of those, I think plenty of times that award goes to those who receive all-star nods in the same season. I
Yeah.
think it's happened a few times.
Like Jalen Johnson might get a nod this year when Ryan Rollins should get a nod this year because Jalen Johnson's been.
Well, Jalen Johnson is an interesting case though, because there still is a significant
There is a
jump
significant.
in his
Yeah.
production. So that this would be the one case where if Jalen Johnson name is in there, I
It
get
makes
it.
sense.
Because
Yeah.
he went from like budding star to basically like they traded Trey and like he got the keys to the franchise essentially. So it kind of got fast tracked.
Significant enough still.
Yeah, but his production jump would still warrant him being in the conversation, in my opinion.
I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll just bring up a name of someone that like
Right.
is an all-star and someone that isn't but still has
So yeah, going from like irrelevant to relevant, like that
Yeah.
type of
a
growth.
starter. He's like a productive starter.
Yeah.
Who's like a trade chip that I would not have once traded for Ja. And I'm like,
Agreed.
that's saying how good he's been.
Yeah. So no, I agree with you, man. Hopefully the NBA makes some headway with changing something within these awards. It just needs to be better overall. So players can also equally be compensated, like, and correctly be compensated based on the criteria versus it becoming a popularity contest essentially for the awards. But
Mm-hmm.
but yeah,